Hello, mutants. I'm Utisha, the movie goddess, and you're watching Mutant TV.
Make a lot of noise for Stan Lee. Everybody.
Sounds like this to me. What do you... very good imitation. You may make notes if you wish. Okay. Take over. You're the moderator. You do the work. I take the credit.
I believe we had a Deadpool that was asked a question. So, let's hear what your question is. Now repeat it.
This thing on.
Simba.
So, Allfather, I have a... sort of a four-part question here. One,
he has a something, I heard that.
One, do you like chimichangas as much as I do?
Sure.
All right, great.
I don't want any enemies. I like everybody.
Two, how much involvement do you still have in Marvel Comics, if any?
I heard that. I don't know how to answer. I really don't have, I have hardly any involvement in the editorial at Marvel Comics. They'll occasionally ask me to write a special introduction or a special story or some little thing, or meet with the artists or writers sometime. But as far as any day-to-day involvement, or any involvement in what they really do, telling them what to do or telling them not to do it, I have nothing to do with that at all. We're just good friends. And I hope we remain that way.
All right. Three, with so many superhero movies nowadays, do you think the industry is becoming inundated and there will eventually be a bubble that will pop and we'll see no more superhero movies for like a long time?
That I didn't get. Absolutely not. Put that man on report. He's going to get bigger and bigger.
And four. Oh wait, I always break the fourth one, so I forgot.
Okay, well, look at that. Thank you.
By the way, I'm sorry. If the crowd's okay with it, and if you're okay with it,
we're not okay with it.
Hold on.
We're probably not okay with it.
Now I can't
Mark and the man together. Okay. Thank you.
All right, get right where the mic so I can hear you. First step. Hello there, young man. What's your question for this one?
All right. What led you to the creations of Marvel Comics?
Greed. No, actually, I had a job. I was working for the company. I wanted to keep my job so I'd be able to pay the rent. And my publisher said, I want you to dream up some new characters for us. So I either had to do it, or he would have fired me. So I dreamed them up. I mean, that's what you do when a publisher says so. That was it. I can lie, but why do that? You're too important to me to lie.
Stan, thank you for coming.
What are you looking at me for? You gotta look over there.
He said, thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here to thank me for coming.
The original tagline for Spider-Man was "The hero who could be you," and when the movie was released in 2002, one of the taglines was "The world needs a hero." I wanted to ask you, when you were creating the original Marvel characters, did you look at the world or the landscape of superheroes and say, this is something that the world needs?
No. I thought it was something I needed to keep my job. No, I forget the order, but I think we had already done the Fantastic Four. I don't know, maybe the Hulk or the X-Men, and my publisher said, come up with something else. So I tried to think, well, what hasn't been done? That's the way you do it. You don't think of what you want to do, you just think of what hasn't been done, and you pick that. And I realized nobody had done anything about an insect crawling on walls who became human. And what happened was I had seen a spider. No, it wasn't a spider. I saw a fly crawling on the wall, and I thought, gee, that would be a great superpower for somebody if they could crawl on walls like an insect. So I figured I would do that. And then I figured, well, I need a name for him. So I thought Insect Man didn't sound dramatic. Fly Man, yeah. Mosquito Man. And then I got to Spider-Man. So I thought of that, but I really wasn't thinking of how he would affect the world or how the world would affect him. I was just thinking, I hope I can write a good enough story and the book will sell. I'll tell you a story about that. So I came to my publisher and I said, I got this great idea. I want to do a teenage hero. There hasn't been any yet. I want him to have a lot of personal problems, and I want to call him Spider-Man. My publisher said to me, this was the darkest moment in my life. My publisher said to me, that is the worst idea I've ever had. He said, first of all, you can't call a hero Spider-Man because people hate spiders. He said, you can't make him a teenager. A teenager can only be a sidekick. And you can't let him have personal problems. Don't you know what a superhero is? So I walked out of the office with my tail between my legs. And a little bit later, we had a magazine that we were killing called Amazing Fantasy. Now, when you kill a magazine, nobody cares what you put in the last issue, because you're killing it. That's the last issue. Who cares? So to get it out of my system, I put Spider-Man in the last issue of Amazing Fantasy. I featured him on the cover, and I forgot about it. About a month or two later, after all the sales figures came in for the magazines, my publisher called me, and he said, hey, Stan, do you remember that Spider-Man character of yours that we both liked so much? Where's one? Why don't we do a series? Because he found out that had been the best-selling book of the month for us, the one that featured Spidey on the cover. And I'm sorry I gave you such a long-winded answer. I tend to work.
Thank you, sir.
But you learned a little bit of history.
Hello. Should I ask my question now?
Yes. Please, young Wolverine, ask your question.
That's a tough question.
Is there a superhero that you did not create that you wished you could have created?
The superhero. Yeah, I wish I had created Superman or Batman. I'd be richer. Tell you a funny thing about Superman. I'll tell you about Thor, then I'll tell you about Superman. The two tie in, you're wondering, what has Thor got to do with Superman? See, that's the way you talk to an audience. You build up the suspense. I have always maintained that Marvel Comics has stories that are scientifically accurate, whereas our competition doesn't. And here's why. According to them, Superman can fly. We've seen Superman fly. He's like this. But he has no visible means of propulsion. What's making him fly? The original concept was he came from a planet where the gravity was much heavier, so here on Earth he could jump over a tall building. I can accept that, but how does he fly? Now we get to Thor, to show you how scientifically accurate. Thor has a hammer with a leather thong that he wraps around his wrist. When Thor wants to fly, remember scientific accuracy, he twirls the hammer like a propeller, lets it go. The hammer goes flying off. Who's attached to the hammer? I rest my case.
Mr. Lee, I just wanted to say I grew up in 70s and 80s, read Stan's Soapbox every issue that I could. I only sent one fan letter out when I was a kid, and it was to you. You're the reason I'm a teacher. You're the reason for so many things that I've done in my life, and this is the best one right here, and I just wanted to say thanks.
Well, you're very welcome. I did it all for you.
Wow, it's really quiet. Sorry. All right. My question. I'm a huge fan of the X-Men, so my question is: I've noticed that the X-Men host a variety of diverse characters. And I just want to know if you would consider this intentional, and would you consider yourself a social advocate?
Something about the X-Men. If you think it's good, I did it intentionally. No, but I wanted them to be diverse. The whole underlying principle of the X-Men was to try to be an anti-bigotry story, to show that there's good in every person. So it wasn't intentional, yes.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
I'm sure over the years you've gotten a lot of the same questions over and over. Has there ever been a time where you've sat back thinking and thought, I wonder why nobody ever asks me about...
No, I've never said I wish somebody would ask me about anything in particular. I do get asked a lot of the same questions. I want to commend all of you because nobody yet has asked me who's my favorite superhero. That's the first one I usually get asked. And I don't have a favorite, but everybody expects me to say Spiderman, so I lie and I say Spiderman. That takes care of that question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
I was just wondering, what are your views on Andrew Garfield's request to make Spider-Man bisexual and Mary Jane male in an upcoming Spider-Man film?
Has he got a very deep voice, or is that the microphone?
A bit of both, maybe.
Oh, I think Andy Garfield is great as Spider-Man. Absolutely great. In fact, I would have picked him for the first Spider-Man movie if he had volunteered.
Yeah, I mean, he's requesting that Spider-Man become bisexual.
He's becoming bisexual? Spider-Man? Who have you been talking to? I don't know, seriously, I don't know anything about that. And if it's true, I'm going to make a couple of phone calls.
Thank you.
Can I go now?
Okay. Just wanted to say this is a real big honor. You've been my fan since I was a child. I was introduced to the world of Marvel comic books through Rogue, one of the female X-Men. And that's how, and from there on, it's been like an addiction. But this is one big serious question for me. The reason why I'm here and stuff like this, because of you. I drove all the way over here to come here, and I've been inspired to do comics, and I'm kind of struggling at that. I'm an artist, I draw pictures and stuff, and I'm trying to get into the comic book industry as an artist, covers and stuff, and I wanted your advice on that.
You know, that's probably the toughest question I can answer. If you want to get into the comic book business as a writer, it's very difficult because the business has become so big and so glamorous to people that some of the best professional writers are now writing comics. People who have done best-selling books, people who have written movies, they're now writing comics. So if you want to get in as a writer, you've got a hell of a lot of competition.
Not writer, as an artist. Artist.
Okay, as an artist, it's easier. No, it's actually as tough as hell. But as an artist, at least you have a chance. You see, a writer can't show an editor 1,000 pages he's typed and said, here, read these, you'll see I'm a good writer, because the editor doesn't have time. But an artist can show a drawing or two, and in a minute, in a second, the art director will know if this guy is good or not. It's easy to tell by looking at artwork. The only thing that makes it not so easy, they only hire artists who are as good or better than the artists they already have. Because why hire somebody who is as good as the guys you have? So in order to become an artist in the comic book business, you've got to be as good as the guys already in the business, or perhaps every so often they're looking for an intern or somebody to hang around and just make little touch-ups in the artwork. And they might hire you for that, and little by little you practice and you get better and you show the editor. But it all depends on having art samples that are so good that they knock the editor's eyes out. Because otherwise, he's got all the artists he needs. We have some of the greatest artists in the world drawing for Marvel now. And it's a very tough business to get into. It was much easier. When I was there, they'd hire anybody because nobody thought it was that important. But now they realize every book might turn out to be a movie worth billions of dollars, so they are very particular. That wasn't very funny, was it? That was very somber and disquieting and a little bit depressing.
Sorry. Hi, Stan. My question to you has to do with your history as a comic book creator. You're considered by many to be the father of a lot of the most popular characters in comic books. But I want to know if there were any characters that you were particularly excited about during your brainstorming process that never really made it too far off the page, that never really took off with the general public.
Were there any characters I was excited about?
Any that stick out in your mind especially?
You know, this may sound, and I don't want it to sound that way, as if I'm bragging. But every character we did became a hit. It was, I think the public was just dead for I mean, we started with the FF, and then again, I don't know the exact order, but the Hulk, and Spiderman, and Daredevil, and Sergeant Fury, and then S.H.I.E.L.D., which was taken from Sergeant Fury, and then there was Iron Man, and then there was Doctor Strange and the Silver Surfer. They all became, we didn't have one superhero that we ever did that didn't work out or that didn't last. Now that I think of it, I don't know how it happened, but that's it.
Well, if there's anyone who's got a right to brag, it's you. Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Lee, it's not a comic book question. I just wanted to ask you how you enjoyed working with Kevin Smith on Mallrats and stuff.
Oh, he's wonderful. He's one of my best friends. He's brilliant. I love working with him. Except sometimes he says things that are cleverer than I do, and I sort of...
Of course, thank you.
Hi, Stan. Thank you for teaching me that with great power comes great responsibility. My question to you is, you've obviously accomplished so much. What accomplishment are you the most proud of?
I don't know. I don't think about it much. I think I'm proud of the fact that Marvel Comics turned out to be as big and successful as it is, but I wasn't the only guy doing it. I worked with the greatest artists in the world who made every story I wrote look better than it really was. And now we have the greatest screenwriters and the greatest movie producers and directors, and they're doing those great movies, and a lot of people are giving me the credit for it, and of course I take it. I don't have much to do with the movies, except, of course, it's my cameos that makes them hits. I didn't have a cameo in Wolverine, I apologize. I know you'll be heartbroken, but they filmed it in Australia, and I just didn't have time to go there, so I missed out on that one. The movie will probably be a dud. No, it's really great. Oh, I would rather you go. Somebody go.
Hey, first off, I want to say thank you for helping create my childhood. My question is, if you had to do it all over again, how would you do it differently?
If I had to do it all again, what? I wouldn't. Actually, when I started out in the comic book business, I hated it. I hated it because nobody had any respect for comics. And we lived in a suburb. All our neighbors were genuine people. I mean, they worked in business. They had manufacturing jobs, or they worked in a bank, or they worked in a store. They were real people. And then they had me, who was sitting writing comic books. And they did not have much respect for that. Most of the parents didn't want their kids to read comic books in those days, in the 50s and early 60s. And what was the question? I tend to ramble.
If you had to do it all over again, how would you do it differently?
Oh, how would I have done different? I often thought, I wish I hadn't started out in comics, and maybe I should quit and try to get a job in a real magazine. In those days, they had magazines like the Saturday Evening Post and Collier's and Liberty, magazines that published stories, adult stories for people, and articles. But I realized I couldn't even get a job there if they said, well, what reference do you have? What have you done? And if I said, well, I've written comics, they would have slammed the door in my face, because no reputable publishing company gave a damn about comics either. So what I would have done, there's nothing I could have done differently, because I needed a job, and that was the only job I could get. I just wish that I could have gotten it. Well, no, I don't, because we did pretty well. I guess I wouldn't change anything. At that time, I didn't realize it. That was the most unbelievable answer I've ever given.
My question is, why did you pick Green for the Hulk?
His question is, why do I always miss the end?
Why did you pick who for the Hulk?
Green.
why did you pick green for the color orange?
I didn't. See, everything is a story. Now, when I came up with the idea of the Hulk, I wanted a heroic monster. And there weren't any heroic monsters. That was a real first. But I wanted to make him like Jekyll and Hyde, where he's a real man who turns into a monster. The monster hates the real man identity, and the real man hates the monster identity, but there's nothing they can do about it. They're the same guy. So I said to myself, okay, now what's he going to look like? I knew by the time I did the Hulk that people who read superhero books love the hero to wear a costume. Don't ask me why, but superhero fans love costumes. So I felt, how can I make sense out of that? Why would a monster go out and buy himself a costume? So the only thing I could think of, instead of a costume, I've got to give him some special look. I mean, it's not enough that he's 8 feet tall and built like a truck. I'm going to give him a different color skin. Well, now I had the option. What color? Because I was the boss. What color skin will I give him? And it occurred to me I'd color him gray. Because to me it looked spooky and mysterious and scary. So in the first issue of the Hulk, we colored him gray. But what happened was the engraver or the printer or somebody had trouble with the gray color. On some pages he looked dark gray, on some pages he was white, light gray, on some pages he was almost white, and some he was... I figured we can't have a guy who keeps changing color. So I figured I'd pick another color for the second issue. And I said, let's see, what color isn't anybody using lately? Yeah, I don't know of any green characters. I said, we'll make them green. And it was just as simple as that. Of course, later on it turned out to be inspiration. But that's why you would take green, just needed a color for him. Instead of a costume. See, really, all the big mysteries in life can be solved very simply.
Hey, Stan. I just first wanted to say that Marvel has always been a huge inspiration to me. I'm an artist myself and have loved comics for years. I've always been curious what some of your favorite comics are other than Marvel, and also possibly what you enjoy reading outside of comics.
I hate Michael books. What do you say?
What do you enjoy reading besides comics?
What do you read? Believe it or not, I don't have time to read for pleasure anymore, which is my biggest regret. I used to always have at least a couple of books at my end table, and I'd read before I went to sleep. Now, I'm too tired because I really work pretty hard. And the first part of the question was what?
Say it again.
What comics do you enjoy outside of Marvel?
I don't read any outside of Marvel. In fact, I'm very unhappy to tell you, I mostly don't even have the time to read Marvel comics. They send them to me, and I look at the covers just to sort of try to keep up with what's going on. But I don't have time to read them. So I hope they're good.
I'll lay off, so thank you.
You're welcome. I heard that distinctly.
First off, Mr. Lee, I want to thank you. Some of my lasting memories of my grandfather revolve around your words or your creations. I remember watching Incredible Hulk or Spiderman in the morning, on Saturday morning, or him picking up a comic and reading it to me. So I just want to thank him for linking me to my grandfather closer. Second, we're all here because we geek out and draw inspiration from him. What do you geek out about, Mr. Lee, and what do you draw inspiration from?
Sounds like you've got a long question. What do I want?
What do you get excited about? What do you draw inspiration from?
Well, I don't know that I get any inspiration. I love movies. I love books. I don't have time to read them now, but I certainly was a voracious reader. up until the past few years. I also don't, it's terrible, I don't hear as well as I did, and I don't see as well as I did, so it's a little tough to read also. I get inspiration from everything in life, the people you meet, the people you talk to, everything you see, the news. I mean, the world is so exciting. There are so many exciting things going on at any minute. There just isn't, I regret there isn't enough time to follow up on everything. And I also love philosophy. I wish I had more time to read about Socrates and people like that. And their thoughts about what the world was and what is. Excuse me, I thought I saw an empty chair. I do not speak to an audience where there's an empty chair. Oh no, it's okay. I was wrong. Did I answer that? Okay.
Yeah, he answered that real well.
First of all, like everyone else, I just want to take a moment to tell you how amazing you are. I know you don't need me to tell you that. I'm pretty sure you know. But anyway, I'll try to be. I'll try to be brief. Over the years. With the sheer number of artists and writers who have been involved in Marvel Comics, the characters have changed pretty drastically. So I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on the evolution of some of the characters you were involved in creating, how they've changed, and whether you feel it's for the best.
I heard over the years the artists.
There's been an evolution of the characters throughout the years, and she's interested to know what you feel about that. What do you think about the way that some of these artists develop the characters that you invent and take them to new places?
Well, it's a natural evolution. There are always going to be new artists and writers coming into the business and working for Marvel. That's the important thing to get the business. And no creative person wants to simply do what was done before him. So a new guy takes over a strip and he says, well, what can I do to put my own imprimatur on it? How can I make it different? How can I make it mine? And he'll decide, I'll kill off a character, I'll add a new character, I'll change a character to something else, or I'll let it take place in another time or in another place. Every creative person feels pretty much the same way. They hate to just feel they're imitating what the people ahead of them did. That's why in comics so many characters die and then they're brought back to life again. Each new writer has a new idea about that. Did that explain it? Or did I confuse them more than ever?
No, that was perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Does that mean we're finished?
One more. Hi, my name is Jen. I'm so nervous. I'm so glad to get to meet you. My husband and I are great fans of your work. Iron Man rules. He's the best. And I'm a struggling writer myself. So what gives you inspiration? What kind of things do you do? Did you do like to write? Because I'm like constantly writing and always reading.
It's terrible. I hear the voice and I can't make out the words.
What do you do for inspiration? What do you for inspiration?
I don't know. I don't know that I have inspiration. And I do what everybody does. I go to a place like this and I get all kind of accolades and compliments. Then I go home and my wife says, oh, you're back? Take out the garbage. I lead the same life anybody does. Right now, I have a company called POW Entertainment, P-O-W. And that, of course, stands for Purveyors of Wonder. And we're working on new movies, new characters. We're doing a new movie that none of our things have been on the screen yet, but you'll see them all in the next year or two. We're doing one that features a Chinese hero. We felt it was time for a Chinese superhero. We're doing another one that features an Indian superhero from India, not an American Indian. Although we'll do that one day. And it won't be Tonto. And we're doing a lot of new stuff. We have something called, might as well get a little advertisement. We have something called Stan Lee's Mighty 7, which will be 3 cartoon animated movies that will appear on the Hub Network, and then they'll be put together somehow and shown in theaters. And so I'm keeping busy, but I also keep my hand in at Marvel. I still talk to the people and beg them to let me do a cameo, or they beg me. We beg each other. Sometimes they beg me not to. And that's my life. It has nothing to do with inspiration. It just really, I like to keep working.
Me too. I do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're a lucky young man. We've got time for 2 more, so you get to be one of those 2. Let's see what your question is.
Well, when you first started working at Marvel, you had your first comic work, and Martin Goodman, the publisher, gave it as an assignment to you, and I was just wondering how you thought about it when you made it.
The first comic that you made for Marvel, how did you come up with it?
Oh, I think the first character I made up was called the Destroyer. I have absolutely no idea how I came up with it. I usually would make up characters depending on a name. The first thing I would think of is a name. Like once I had the name Spiderman, everything else fell into place. And I must have come up with the name The Destroyer, and I said, oh, that's a good name, now what'll he do? And then I had him do something, but it was so long ago, I don't remember the story or what he did or anything about him. In those days, again, my publisher was a funny guy. We would do an issue or 2 of a character, and he'd say, that's enough, now let's do another character. He had a short interest span. And so I would just keep coming up with a lot of different characters, one of which was the Destroyer. It was a good name. I should have held on to it. Well, could have used it for Power Entertainment.
Thank you. And one more.
Thank you, Stan Lee. You were very inspirational to me and inspirational to a doctor, a vet in Ireland who was called the Bionic Vet. He came up with a way to help the dog heal his bones by an inspiration from X-Men that he calls the Wolverine technique.
Something about X-Men?
It's not a question yet, but it's an interesting story. There's a vet in Ireland who's called the Bionic Vet because she's developed a technique for helping dogs' bones heal that she calls the Wolverine technique, based on X-Men ideas.
So we'll sue.
It slipped my mind. It's okay. If you want to take somebody else, that's great.
I don't actually have anything that interesting to say. I was just wondering if I could shake your hand.
Something about a hand. Okay.
All right. Do you actually have a question in the green row? Okay. I know you do in the blue. I'm sorry. This is no time.
Thank you.
I actually have 2 questions. First.
Okay, we only have time for 1 question.
Okay.
Ask a good question. So pick which
How
one
do
you want to
you
do.
feel that they made Cyclops kill Professor Xavier in the new Marvel?
How do you feel about the Cyclops killing Professor Xavier?
I didn't know he did. I wasn't aware of that. But I feel it's terrible.
I've been told we can take your last 2 questions too. So you guys, you're winners in the red. Not the green. We're going to get one for each. Sorry. Thank you.
Why did he kill Canada? I better look into this.
All right, let's have it.
How you doing, Stan? My name is Jerry. Within these past 6 months, I've opened Bold Comic Company, and we published our first one, and it's off the ground logo in Louisville, and we're just about sold out of our first issue. My question to you is how to keep this thunder rolling, and for a creator and writer, one to another, what is your advice?
He has a what? if it's successful, that means that it sold enough copies that you made a profit. So you take that profit, you turn out more copies, and you try to make every issue better than the last, so you keep getting more readers. And if you think you've really got something good, you try to show it to somebody who might know somebody who's in the movie business who might consider it for a movie, but you can't do that until you can tell the guy in the movie business, look at this, I did it myself and it sold 50,000 copies and every month it sells more, it's a big hit. Otherwise they won't care. It can be the greatest thing in the world, but if they don't feel it was successful as a comic book, they won't bother with it. That was another very dull answer, wasn't it? I can be dull.
Thank you, Stan.
You made it. Yes.
I made it. Thank God. First, I want to thank that gentleman over in the red shirt for giving me his place in line. He's awesome. And second, I want to say, holy crap, I'm talking to Stanley right now.
Yeah, it must be a big moment. I hope somebody is recording it for you.
Actually, I have it on my cell phone right now. And third of all, one of my best friends in this whole world is on the phone with me right now. And I would really love for you to say hello to her right now. Her name is Paige.
Say hello to who? Hey, Paige, are you there? Hello. I've been wanting to say hello to you for the longest time. I hope everything's okay. Hey, Celsius.